Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. We had a wonderful night of sports last night. We had a World Series champion crowned. We will talk all about that wild Game 5 that saw the Dodgers raise their 8th franchise World Series title. Freddie Freeman, Freddie Freeman World Series MVP. Shohei Ohtani gets his first. We'll dive into a little bit of the MLB postseason, the MLB offseason. There's already been a trade. Where does Juan Soto go? We'll talk about some NBA basketball and some preview for some football coming up today and from earlier this week. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 21st, Halloween for everyone here in America. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show with the biggest news of the day. The Dodgers cruise in a 5-game series, a gentleman's sweep for their 8th title, their 8th World Series victory in franchise history. This was a really, really good baseball game for those who were not watching. This is a game that I highly recommend. It should go down as one of the all-time classic series, honestly, just the way that the Dodgers were able to play throughout the entirety of this series, from the miracle Game 1, first walk-off grand slam in the history of the World Series, with Freddie Freeman, who now is the World Series MVP. He wins the World Series MVP playing with fractured ribs. There is so much going on in this World Series. It's hard to know where to start with, but we're going to start off with a Game 5 recap here because it looked like it was going to be all Yankees all day. It starts off with a home run from Aaron Judge, something we have been waiting on. We have yet to see a big Aaron Judge moment in the postseason, in the World Series especially, and it looked like he delivered in one of the biggest games of the season, of his entire career, Game 5 in the Bronx here. Then Jazz Chisholm hits a home run. They start off with a 3-0 lead. It balloons all the way up to 5-0 after a Giancarlo Stanton home run, who has been absolutely mashing all postseason long. Arguably was one of the best players in the entire postseason. Definitely was the best Yankee. Instead, we are talking about here in the 5th inning is where everything changed. Instead of talking about a Game 6 coming up tomorrow, we are sitting here and we are talking all about how the Dodgers have won their 8th title. And all of this can get tracked to the 5th inning. Gerrit Cole was pitching a gem. Not only was he pitching a gem, he was pitching a no-hitter through 4 in the biggest game of his life. He would have gotten out of it a no-hitter through 5. Not a perfect game, but a no-hitter through 5 until a couple of just boneheaded, unforgivable mistakes were made by the Yankees, starting off the inning with a just routine fly ball. Maybe it was hit a little bit hard, but right to Aaron Judge in center field. A routine play, one that we've seen him make plenty of times. He made a wonderful diving play against Freddie Freeman earlier on in the game, but he could not catch a line drive hit directly to him. Hits him in the glove for an error. Flash forward, 2 outs later, a couple of base runners get on through some walks. Bases are now loaded. A hard ground ball is hit over to first base. Anthony Rizzo fields this ball, gets over to first, the inning's over. Gerrit Cole flips it to him, the inning's over. There is just a miscommunication defensively. Everyone's safe. The ball is hit directly to Anthony Rizzo. Gerrit Cole does not go over and cover the bag. This was a brutal mistake. It leads to 5 unearned runs coming in to tie up the game. It is now a tie game, 5-5. And the Dodgers, they just keep piling it on. All of these mistakes compounded on each other, and eventually it led to the Dodgers raising their 8th World Series title. They're going to have their first parade in a very long time, their second title in the 2020s, winning in that COVID year. This was just a masterclass of a baseball season for those Dodgers. This was a beautiful, beautiful baseball team, right? You have your superstars at the top, of course, but Walker Buehler coming in clutch in this one, coming in off of a really down season, 2 years straight missing because of surgeries and injuries. He comes in and not only pitches gems in the NLDS, the NLCS, but also he comes in, pitches a gem in the World Series, closes out the final World Series game. Shohei Ohtani, with his first ever World Series title, spent the first half of all but this year of his career in the other franchise in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Angels, and now I'm scared. I'm scared the Dodgers are going to win the next 4 World Series titles. We might not see another team win the World Series for the rest of Shohei Ohtani's career. Because not only did we see a kind of nerfed Dodgers team just put it all together and go on a run. This was the Dodgers team that I've never seen so together. You talk about how the mentality, or at least I have a lot, the mentality of a clubhouse is something that's so important when we look at the long dredge of a season that is baseball, and clubhouses that get down on each other, clubhouses that have that hate, that the vibes aren't there. I know that's not a very scientific word that we like to use when we're talking about sports, but it's very important in baseball. And everything was going the Dodgers' way. That was a fun clubhouse to be a part of. They were having a good time. People genuinely liked each other, and that is what you need to be a successful baseball team. Not just the product on the field, which is 3/4 of the battle, but you could put together the greatest team. We've seen it time in and time out with these Dodgers, these huge Avengers-level threat Dodgers. They just have fallen short year after year because the clubhouse doesn't seem to mesh together the same way that this one did. I don't know if that's because of Ohtani. I don't know who that's because of, but they figured it out this season and they got it done. Congratulations to the Dodgers for winning the World Series. Mookie Betts gets his 3rd. He's now the the active leader for World Series wins right now in the MLB. Freddie Freeman has an incredible performances. In 5 games, 4 home runs, obviously sets the record for most consecutive World Series games with a home run, ending with a streak of 6 straight not homering in the final game. But he reached 12 RBIs. He had a massive 2 RBI single in this game to put the Dodgers in front in this one. This was just a massive series from the former Brave. He wins World Series MVP on what is now reported as playing on with some broken ribs. You would never be able to tell with how he was playing. This was just a magical moment for everyone in LA in that Dodgers room, and I couldn't be more happy for a lot of those guys. They deserve it. But now the question becomes, as we turn to the offseason, the question really centers around a man in the other clubhouse, the other dugout over there. What happens with Juan Soto? We'll answer that question coming up next. So stick around. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits some loser shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Dodgers claiming their 8th ever World Series title. Freddie Freeman wins his World Series MVP, a great performance from everyone in that organization. Shohei Ohtani, deservingly so, finally gets his ring. In this segment, we answer the biggest question that will be talked about throughout all of baseball offseason. Where does Yankees slugger, young superstar, just 26 years old, Juan Soto go after this season? How much money does he get? We answer all of those questions in just a second, but before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can go to you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 31st, Halloween for all of you guys here in America. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the biggest question of the MLB offseason. We don't see a situation happen like this too often when a player that has barely reached his prime, one that is already on a Hall of Fame trajectory, hits the free agent market. If you remember, before Juan Soto was traded from the Nationals to the Padres, he was offered $440 million. Seemed like a bad business decision to make at the time to turn it down, but if only he knew. He seemed to have this fortune-telling sequence. He knew. Maybe. But right now he's on track for $600 million. $600 million to play baseball, a game that he's only getting better at. He's already going to go down as one of the best baseball players ever, at least one of the best of this generation. He is only 26 now, just turned 26 in this World Series. He's already won one back in 2019 with the Nationals. So what does Juan Soto look like? He's going to get a bag from somewhere. So we're going to start with the teams that have been able to just throw money around like it's nobody's business. There are two teams that stick out with those metrics right there, right? Three, I should say. One of those is the team he's already on, the Yankees. That is one that you would think has a little bit of an edge. He seemed to have a good time in that clubhouse, seemed to have a fun time this season playing with Aaron Judge, and obviously a very successful season, making it all the way to the World Series before falling in 5 games. The other options outside of that are his World Series opponents, the teams that just beat him in the Los Angeles Dodgers. We've already seen them give out over $1 billion in contracts last season. They don't seem to have any ideas or thoughts of slowing down their spending. What's another $600 million to a superstar that could just basically make your team a walking cheat code in Juan Soto? That's another option over there. Or he could go to the other New York team, the New York Mets. Steve Cohen over there very famously just tosses money at people. And if you're going to decide to toss money at people, why not decide to toss money at one of the best in baseball in his prime? I'd say those are the three that will probably offer him the most money, just straight up the most money. If you're looking at a team that he has a little more familiar with, a team that is going to be in the running, a team that should pursue them, there's a couple on that list as well. If he's looking for straight money, it's going to be one of those three. But outside of it, the San Francisco Giants are a team that have offered a lot of money to a lot of key free agents in recent times. They're a team that's a little bit less set up for success than the Dodgers or the Yankees, maybe even than the Mets here, who just went on a little bit of a run. But they're a team that is so derived of a superstar, they are trying to go get one in the worst way. They almost poached Aaron Judge from the Yankees. Can they get a Yankee slugger in this offseason? That's an option. The Phillies have been reported to go and aggressively pursue Juan Soto this offseason. That would suck, honestly. I don't want him to go to Philly. That's the one place that I don't want him to go. That's me speaking as a Washington Nationals fan here, which really is the other option. It's one of those options that's kind of just been quietly in the background of everybody's mind, I think, for the entirety of this season. What if Juan Soto returns to Washington? What if he goes back to the place that traded him, the place that he came up in, the place that he won his first World Series in, the place that is now being built up as a contender, or at least a playoff contender, maybe even next season, with the pieces that were traded for him? That is an option. Out of those 6 or so teams, those are the finalists, at least from what I can tell, that I think he will go to. If I had to give it a list of where I think he will end up, we'll go 6-1 here. Number 6, the Giants. I don't think he goes back. I don't think he goes to the Giants, even if they offer him that much money. I think there's going to be more competitive offers from these other teams that are on the list, and the Giants just seem like such a long shot to get it unless they just strictly outbid everyone. Outside of the Giants, number 5, I'm going with the Phillies. I don't feel like he fits in that Phillies team. They're a team that's already paying Bryce Harper a lot of money. I don't know if they're really going to be able to open up the pocketbooks the same way that he's going to be available for. Number 3, the Mets. It's just not on the same level as the Yankees or the Dodgers, or doesn't have the same connection as a team he's already been on, like the Dodgers, like the Yankees or the Nationals. For that, they stay just outside the top 3 at number 4. At number 3, we're going with the Dodgers. Again, this is just going to be a question of, does he want to go to the place with the most money, maybe win another ring? If he wants to win, or if he wants to go ring chasing, go join the Dodgers. There's no better team to do that with than the Los Angeles Dodgers right now. Team up with Shohei Ohtani, make that team even more of a juggernaut than it already is. Number 2, or I'll do it this way. Number 2, it's the Yankees. Number 2 is the Yankees. He re-signs with the Yankees. They seem to have a little bit of an edge on everything, and maybe this is just my fandom speaking. Maybe this is just a little bit of my fan fiction in my mind. Oh, wouldn't that be crazy? But number 1 for me is the Nationals. And maybe if I'm being realistic, the Nationals should be number 2, and the Yankees should be number 1 as for where he's going to go. But I can't shake this feeling that there is a greater than there's a greater than zero chance, a greater chance than just about anywhere else that he comes back to Washington. Like I said, maybe that's just some wishful thinking on me over here, but I really do think it might happen. Not something that I expect to happen, but if that did happen, that would be the craziest trade in the history of maybe sports. Trade away an entire farm system for a superstar, only for that superstar to turn around and rejoin that team. That would be insane. We will see, though. That is going to be the story to track as the MLB offseason continues to go. We're going to take a quick break from the MLB. When we come back, we turn our attention to basketball. There's lots of action going down. The Pacers knock off the Celtics in overtime yesterday. The Washington Wizards get their second straight win, this time over the Hawks, getting a lot of help from their young guys. We'll do a little swing around the rookie ranks right now as we check in around the NBA. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Halloween. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the MLB. The Dodgers are now World Series champions for the 8th time in their history, the 2nd time in the last 5 years. And for the 5th straight year, Will Smith has won the World Series. Congratulations to Will Smith. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA. The NBA has been going crazy. Lots and lots of news coming out of there after a big night in basketball yesterday as well. We'll do a quick recap of everything that happened yesterday, do a trip around the league. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on this beautiful Thursday, October 31st. But like I was saying, in this segment, we get into a little bit of the NBA from yesterday. And we're going to start off in Indiana. Two teams coming in at very different spots in this very young season. The Celtics came in undefeated, world beaters, seemingly not stopping for anybody at 4-0. The Pacers came in struggling. 1-3 had really struggled to really get anything going, especially offensively with the struggles of one Tyrese Halliburton. This game played like neither of these teams could miss, and that was exciting, especially in the first quarter of this game. We had a back and forth sequence where for about 5 minutes of that first quarter, nobody missed a shot. This game was one of the better games so far of the entire season. You had a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals from last year that saw those Indiana Pacers come up ahead this time in overtime. There was a crazy sequence to even just get here, as there was a beautiful shot made by the Pacers to put it up 3 points in regulation. Jason Tatum comes down, spot up 3 at the top of the arc to tie the game, send it to overtime, where in that overtime period, the Pacers are able to pull ahead right at the end, hold on to a 3-point lead. It was a beautiful game of basketball, really. The Indiana Pacers come away with their second win of the season, and this makes the beginning of their season look a lot better. I know it's only through 5 games for both of these teams. The Celtics, there's no sweat on them. They still looked phenomenal against what is a good Pacers team, a Pacers team that was good enough to even play them as close as anybody really did in the postseason, even though they ended up losing in 5 games. This is a matchup of two teams that very well could clash in the playoffs again. This is a good start to the season series, and it's exactly what we saw at the end of last year, really. It's a lot of fun, a lot of high-paced, high-scoring basketball, and I cannot wait for these two teams to clash again. This is a huge win for the Pacers, though, bigger than for the Celtics. I'm not too worried about the Celtics. They've been playing out of their mind. They just had, as crazy as it is to say, an off-shooting night when you shoot still 40%. They had a little bit of an off shooting night, only 33% from 3 instead of their usual game breaking 50% or whatever they've been doing. But this was a huge win for the Pacers. This was a game they needed to get their season kind of on track. Like I said, when we were doing our power rankings, they were struggling a lot. Tyrese Halliburton was really struggling, especially to get really anything going. And that didn't stop too much in this game. Had a double-double, 17 and 12, but shot 2 for 10 from 3. The rest of his teammates picked up his slack. Pascal Siakam, had a huge game, shooting over 50%, almost 30 points on the night, double-double with 11 rebounds as well. Mathurin put up 30 points in this game, 43 minutes off the bench. He played a huge role in this one. The Pacers, like I said, with a huge win, something that they needed desperately to kind of get some positive momentum on their side. Getting to the bottom, making our way to the bottom of the Eastern Conference, making one quick pit stop here, just a quick little note, as Cat finally puts up a huge game. Again, we weren't waiting for too long. His first 40-point effort as a Knick puts them over the Heat in a game that, I think Cat really needed. This is an offense and a team that he's been kind of struggling to get even with, to find his rhythm in, really everyone to find their rhythm in this one. Cat puts up 44 Cats put up 44 points in this one, and that's the kind of offense that they traded for. That's the reason they flipped DiVincenzo and Randall. They get the big guy that could put up 40 points a night, when put up 40 points in any given night. When you really need him to step up big, they finally were able to get that. But making our way down to the bottom of the league here, we're going to start off in Washington as the Wizards, taking on the Hawks, get their second straight win, this time behind the youth movement. The Hawks have now lost 2 straight to the Wizards. This one not quite as close as the last one was for the Wizards, as they only won by 2. But Bilal Coulibaly is really turning into something special in Washington. Him, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, these are guys that made their first, that all start in the game. The average starting lineup for the Wizards last night was 20 years old. That's ridiculous. And all of them, not all of them, but a lot of them really did step up. The oldest player in that starting lineup is Jordan Poole. He's not that old. You had a really nice mix of young players really start to step up. This was probably the best game for Alex Sarr. He adds a couple of blocks along with 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 of 5 from the 3-point line. Not the greatest shooting night, but it was definitely his most efficient night in his young career. Like I said, Bilal Coulibaly really, really showed up in this one, and the youth movement for the Wizards here is starting to become something. Not going to happen this year. I'm not delusional. I'm not a delusional fan here or anything, but this is a Wizards team that has a lot of momentum going for it. As long as they manage it the right way, they could be a problem in the East in the next couple of years. The final game I wanted to talk about before we move off of the NBA for the day is the Pistons. They get their first win. The Pistons get their first win of the season against, of course, the Joel Embiid and Paul George-less 76ers. This was a huge, huge night for them. Tobias Harris, in his revenge game, you can say his first revenge game against the Philadelphia 76ers, has his best game. He had over 14 points in this one, something that they've been waiting on. It wasn't really the most beautiful game for them, but they got into the win column, and that's what they've been waiting on. A big win for the Pistons. And I know I said the last thing, but there is one more thing I wanted to touch on. Can't really get away without saying anything. How about Bronny James scoring his first career points in the NBA in Cleveland? I couldn't think of a more fitting place for him to do it. He used his dad's little shimmy shake move as well. It was a fun little moment, something that's kind of getting a little blown out of proportion, but he's going to get sent down to the G League after this game, I think is the report. After 5 games, they were reporting he would get sent down. So he gets some points in the NBA, can go actually work on his game and improve, and we can stop talking about it a little bit. But shout out Bronny James getting your first points in the NBA in Cleveland despite the Lakers' loss. But let me know what you thought of the NBA action from last night. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NFL, to college football, some weekday games to go over, and of course, a Thursday night football matchup between CJ Stroud and the Texans as they take on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 31st, Halloween, if you will. A beautiful day outside, really. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over the NBA action from last night. Some big standout moments from some young guys and some big wins from some teams that needed it in the worst possible way. In this segment, we turn our attention to football. A massive matchup tonight in the NFL between a 6-2 Texans squad that is kind of hurting at wide receiver after Stephon Diggs went down, and a 2-6 Jets squad that for about the 6th week straight, we are saying it is a must-win game. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use, that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 31st. But like I was saying, in this segment, we're getting into some Thursday night football preview. The Texans taking on the New York Jets in prime time. CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be a big matchup for both of these teams. Obviously, both of these teams are dealing with their own kind of issues. For the Jets, they are kind of out of desperation moves. They've made their decisions. They've made their bed. They have to lie in it. They're in probably the worst situation in all of the NFL for the future of their team. But they've gone all in. This is what happens. It either works or it doesn't. And right now we're on the it doesn't. I feel bad for the Jets on this one, really, because Aaron Rodgers was supposed to come in, be that Aaron Rodgers that we saw in Green Bay. Instead, it just has been a disaster, whether that be because of the injury, whether that be because of him trying to take control after not having any in Green Bay. Maybe we see why he didn't have any over there. Either way, they've made desperation moves 3 weeks in a row, and they are out of desperation moves to make after losing to the Patriots in this one. They can't fire another coach, or at least it wouldn't look good if they did. They can't make another switch to play calling. They've already done that. They can't go out and make another big trade for a weapon. They've already done that. They can't go out and sign a big defensive acquisition. They have already gone and done that. This is a bad look for them. They are in a lot of trouble if they don't win this game, although they are favored. This is a head-scratching move. This is head-scratching for me, how they are favored, to be completely honest with you. I don't understand it. I'm not going to pretend to understand it. But this is a Jets team that is favored against the Houston Texans. A Houston Texans team that, yes, they are banged up. A Houston Texans team that, yes, CJ Stroud hasn't played his best football in the last 2 weeks. A Houston Texans team that, yes, the offensive line is something that you can get through, but undeniably, this is a Houston Texans team that is better than this New York Jets team. This is a Houston Texans team that has dispatched of some of the has dispatched of some of the bigger threats that they've had to go over. The only losses that they faced are when they don't have their biggest weapon, which they do have in this game, that being running back Joe Mixon. Of all the acquisitions, of all the moves that the Texans made in the offseason, none has been more impactful, more important than the addition of Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon comes in and immediately adds that extra dimension that they never had with Dameon Pierce, with Devin Singletary, that ability to just break off these big runs. And we see how much of an effect it has on this Texans offense. This is a Texans offense that was really missing it when he wasn't in there. They have only dominated games when he's playing. They have only lost games when he's not playing, and he is in the lineup. They don't need all those weapons. CJ Stroud is good enough to deal with just Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and John Mechie, as well as tight end Dalton Schultz. This is a big time for those guys to step up. It's not like it's a completely depleted wide receiver room despite not having all of their guys there. Nico Collins should come back next week, so it's not a big deal. You just have to survive one game without two receivers. And the way that this Jets defense has been playing, especially against the run, which is what the Texans are going to be. That's what the Texans bred. How they want to beat you is by the run. This is a matchup that they can really take advantage of. The Jets have been run up and down on all season long, and I don't expect that to change tonight. While CJ Stroud might not have his best game, I don't think he needs to have his best game in this one for the Texans to win. And I think that's really what it boils down to. I've been very disappointed with the Jets this entire season. They continue, especially Aaron Rodgers is the person I've been the most disappointed in. He's someone that, yes, I expected his mobility to go down. Yes, I expected his arm strength to maybe even go down a little bit as he got older, but the one thing that has stood out to me that has been the glaring issue when I watch Aaron Rodgers play is the fact that he is making mental mistakes. That's the one part of your game as an aging quarterback that's not supposed to go away. You're supposed to still have your sharp mind, that kind of ability to make the right decision. This, I guess, wiseness factor is how I'll put it on a football field, right? The older you get, the wiser you get, the more you remember these coverages, and everything you hear about Aaron Rodgers is, oh, he's so cerebral. He's got this memory. He can remember just one play where they ran that exact defensive look against him 10 years ago on a random December night, right? He has supposedly that ability to bring that up, but he has made countless mental mistakes this season. About every single mistake that he's made. This is the most interceptions I can remember him throwing that are completely his fault. He has not been diagnosing the defense correctly. That is supposed to be his skill. That's supposed to be his superpower. He's supposed to be an X's and O's guy, regardless of if his arm isn't the same, regardless of if he can't move around in the pocket. And yes, those things are diminishing his game, but he should not have forgotten how to diagnose a football defense. And that is the most concerning thing to me. I cannot look at this game, I cannot look at this Jets team and take them seriously as a favorite when Aaron Rodgers is not doing what he's best at, what he's supposed to be best at this age, even at a competent standard. We hop on a lot of rookie quarterbacks, a lot of young quarterbacks, and not being able to read the defenses. He's doing the same thing. He needs to get back to looking, preparing, and actually getting into the game for football. And until he can do that, these Jets are not going to win football games. I don't think that ends tonight. I think the Jets get really kind of embarrassed in this one. I don't know what other moves there are to make, but I think the Texans win this game very comfortably. 31-17. Let me know what you think, though. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game. Joe Mixon should go off. He really should. The Jets have a really bad run defense. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we finish off our show talking about the midweek games of college football. We talk about all of the games that have taken place. Liberty goes down yet again. Some Thursday games to highlight and some games yesterday and Tuesday to go over. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 31st, Halloween. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Thursday night football game between the Jets and the Texans tonight. A big game for both of those teams. In this segment, we turn our attention to college football. Two massive games tonight, one between a really good Group of 5 team in Tulane, one that I have in my personal top 25, and we'll also go over the Tuesday and Wednesday results in college football. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 31st. But like I was saying, we are getting into our final segment of the show here, the weekday college football review. A lot of stuff to go over, just a couple of games, as there's been some on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, and of course some tonight. We're going to start off with the results that have already happened, starting off with a couple of games from Tuesday night, one in the Sun Belt, as Louisiana, a top Group of 5 school, took care of business against a good Texas State team. Texas State, led by former James Madison quarterback Jordan McLeod, has kind of been a little bit disappointing this season. They came in as favorites in the Sun Belt from a lot of people. They've dropped now 4 games as Louisiana improves to 7-1. And is kind of making a case for why they should be a Group of 5 playoff spot contender. Now, they're going to need a lot of things to go right for that to happen. They're going to, first of all, need to keep on winning. They're going to have to win the Sun Belt. They're going to have to win out one loss, especially with how weak the Sun Belt has been this season, how they've been kind of cannibalizing each other. They are out of this race. But if Boise State stumbles, you have a couple teams right below them in Army that has a very losable game against Notre Dame, Washington State that could find a way to lose later down the road, and Tulane, who already has 2 losses. Louisiana arguably is 5th in the Group of 5 standings. I have them at 6 right now, but I would understand if you had them down at 5. This is a very good Louisiana team. They continue to take care of business when they need to, winning a good one against a good team in the Sun Belt. It's just going to suck because that strength of schedule is not quite there. Getting into a Wednesday game in the CUSA as Jacksonville State dispatches Liberty. Liberty has now lost 2 straight games after not losing a game since 2022. They take a loss to Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, who won their first ever FBS game last week against Liberty, they take a loss this week to Western Kentucky. Liberty just continues to prove they're a fraudulent team. They have yet to get bowl game eligibility. They're still 1 game out from that. They thought they would get that a couple weeks ago. Jacksonville State is a team that a lot of people thought would be really good this year. They started off slow, a couple of tough games. They found their own. They take care of business at Liberty, a team that clearly just is not very good, should never have gotten the respect that they were getting from the national media here. Big fan of Liberty losing. Love that. Sorry about that. If you're a Liberty fan here, but they're a team that I think is just their winning is getting blown way out of proportion because they just don't play anybody, and the CUSA is a very weak conference. They've now lost 2 straight. They're kind of falling back to earth after having a couple of really successful seasons back to back to back. And that brings us to today's game. Today's games, there's a couple of them today that I want. There's one of them today I wanted to talk about, that being Tulane taking on Charlotte. Tulane, as I said, one of those top Group of 5 teams. They're the number 4 team for me in the Group of 5. I think they have a very talented team. They're 6-2. Only losses come to two Power 5 schools, SEC's Oklahoma and Big 12's Kansas State. Those are two very talented programs. Kansas State in the top 25, in the top 15 for me, and a real contender to make the college football playoffs. They probably should have even won that game. And Oklahoma, a team that was looking really good, kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit after a string of tough losses in the SEC. We take a look at this Tulane team that has just been dominant outside of both of those games. Charlotte, a team that's nothing to scoff at, though. They've had a couple of tough tests this season. They've built a not so easy schedule. They play James Madison, North Carolina, Indiana, these all Navy, in Memphis. A lot of these top group of 5, pretty good ranked teams at some point. These are all really good teams. They've gotten a couple of quality wins, beating East Carolina, Gardner-Webb, a solid FCS school. This is a Charlotte team that if you sleep on them, they will come and get you. I don't think much of Tulane sleeping on Charlotte, though, because Tulane is playing with a purpose right now. They're trying to get a spot in the American Championship, trying to find a way into the college football playoff. Their hope is real. If Army ends up losing to Notre Dame, they probably have the second clearest path to the title. It's just going to come down to whether or not Boise State slips on their way to the college football playoff. This is going to be a good game. I think 14.5 points is a lot. I think Tulane's offense is extremely explosive, and the way that they have been able to blow out their opponents in the last couple of weeks has been a sign of their dominance. I don't think it's going to be a huge blowout, but I do think they will win this game. I'm going with a Tulane victory by a score of 31-24. But let me know what you think. Should be a lot of fun tonight in college football. Very excited to see Friday for our game picks. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll have the biggest games to be picked tomorrow in the NFL, in college football. We'll talk about Thursday night football and all of the biggest news from around the world of sports. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Go enjoy Halloween. Have a wonderful night. I will see you all tomorrow for the first day of November and a brand new month of Talkin' Sports. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go.